Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm going to be starting in just a minute. Please say hi, introduce yourself, ask questions. That's what I'm here for, is to answer your questions. I'll be right back. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live stream, and thank you for being here. Of course, I'm here to answer your questions. Even if I've seen you before, always tell me where you're from. I love hearing where everyone originates from. I mean, it's really cool because we all come from such diverse backgrounds, but in this world of software, we can do amazing things regardless of where we are, right? This has been proven time and time again. In some cases, you can absolutely get better by being around other people who are also actively trying to get better. And that's a big part of these live streams too, is like, I want to show you guys that, yeah, you can absolutely do this. Every once in a while, you'll hit some snags and thus you jump on the live streams. Okay, first up, let's see here. That is an old one. Watson. Let's see. Hello, Watson. How's it going? From Haiti. Awesome. Hey, Rahul. Rahul, am I pronouncing that correctly? Sorry if I am not. What's the difference between test, func, and dispatch? What are you referring to there? Because that could be in a number of places. Next one. Hi. How's it going? How to start in a Django chat project. Check out my chat times channels series. That actually covers that altogether. I finally fixed that autofocus thing that was happening in some of the other ones. I just turned it into manual focus. A big part of the reason I did autofocus is so that I could put things like that and it would actually focus. But now I'll just do something like that so you can see it, because that constant bumping was really annoying for all of us. I promise you. Hey, how's it going? Welcome. Why do we use signals in Django? So there are database type signals when you do database action. So if you save something in the database, you can actually have a signal be sent when that happens. So then you can actually do all sorts of things. And that signal will always go to the signal receivers. So you can have, let's say, for instance, you created a model that actually registers someone's email address. A signal can be used to actually send them an email to confirm that email. That's one way to do it. So yeah, thanks for the question. Next one. Hello, welcome. You're on all of my live streams, huh? Are you there? Oh, excuse me. Are you there when I'm live, or are you there after I'm live? Thanks for attending. I appreciate it. Either way, it means a lot. Hey, how's it going? You're from Bangladesh. Would you say something about Django channels? So Django channels definitely should work with Django 3.1. I actually haven't looked at the requirements itself. I haven't needed to integrate the two, but Django 3.1 adds a lot more asynchronous support. So I'd imagine Django channels and Django 3.1 work fine together. I don't believe that Django 3.1 has WebSocket support natively. That's where Django channels comes in. Thanks for the question. And I think the minimum version of Python is either Python 3.5 or 3.6. I would say at least do 3.6 and above. I don't know why you would use 3.5 if you don't have to. Thanks for the question. Hello. And hi. From India. Nice. India. Hey, professional face puncher. I think I've seen you a couple of times. Your name really stands out because it's pretty aggressive, I'd say. Scotland, huh? Nice. I haven't ever been to Scotland, but I've heard it's beautiful. Maybe someday I'll be able to go there. Thank you for watching my Django courses, and you're in India. That's awesome. Hello. Saudi. Hi. This is like one of the second most common questions I get. Just give me 1 second. Django React or Vue. So Django with React or Django with Vue. The Django part of this actually doesn't matter that much as far as the front is concerned. Honestly, you can pick either one. I really like React, but that's the one I learned first, and that's the one I've mastered more. Well, maybe not completely mastered, but I definitely have a really solid foundation with React over Vue. I haven't given Vue enough time to do it. Thanks for the question. From Turkey, nice. And India, awesome. Hopefully it's not too late for you guys in India. Hello from Greece, great. I've been to Athens like many other people that just go to Greece. Athens is like on top of there, right? Greece is beautiful. I'm not sure what this means. You'd love to learn detailed concepts in Django. So I'm assuming you want to know everything about Django then? Is that kind of what you're saying here? Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can learn about Django. I would say building projects is the best way to do it. And then also maybe actually reading the Django code, the actual code that's on GitHub for Django. That might be a good thing to do as well to get all of those details. So consider that. Cool. So I'm putting this live poll back up. So how it actually works is you can vote by using one of these letters here. So hashtag A, hashtag B, hashtag C will put your vote in. And these votes are calculated automatically. So you just put it in the live stream and it'll go on. I'm going to continue to put this up until I have, I don't know, maybe 1,000 or more votes, if I ever even get there, on making this as democratic as possible. So if you haven't voted for this one, please do. And even if you have voted and you want to change your vote, whatever your most recent vote is what's going to be counted. So thanks for checking out that poll. Okay, cool. Let's see. Next up, what version of Python is best? Python 3.6 and above. Pick any of those versions. That's my opinion. Rahul, I say it correct. Great. Thank you for clarifying that question for me. Appreciate it. Can I tell you the concept of iterators and generators and Python? Can you give me an example if you used it in any project? Sure. So an iterator is anything that you can loop over, essentially. So any kind of loop that you can loop over. Generators are similar, but generators don't actually like you actually have to loop over them to yield the result from a generator. So you actually have to call them. It's similar to like using await in a asynchronous function. Generators work very similar to that. And most of the time when you see a generator, it'll have a yield keyword in there as well. So it would actually yield the value. So the generator is not actually running until you're actually calling that. There's probably a lot of really good documentation on generators themselves. And it's definitely something worth checking out. And perhaps I need to make a full-on tutorial on it too. Let's see here. Hi from Spain. Nice. Where in Spain are you from, Juan? I lived in Calatayud for a little while. I lived in Barcelona for a little while. I visited Madrid. I think I was there a couple of weeks. I also visited Malaga. I really, really like Spain. I thought about just living there full time, but honestly, I don't speak Spanish well enough to really get all the culture, especially now. So it's been a few years since I've been there, but then I was like actively trying to learn Spanish a little bit more, but then I kept on getting pulled towards doing more software and code stuff. So I didn't really get a whole lot from learning Spanish because I really didn't dedicate myself to it when it comes down to it. And then I also started missing home. I started missing like Mexican food and things about California and just being near friends and family and stuff like that. So I left Spain and came back. Yeah. Cool. Making decent progress right now. Only 7 minutes behind. Can you explain to me exactly what an API is? Yeah. So sure. When there's a few ways to think about an API. I think a lot of people say, "Oh, do you have an API?" That's referring to their web application or somebody's web application having a way for your software to talk to their web application, right? And APIs also exist within software. So whenever you need to run a function that's built into somebody else's library, you're using their API. So it's kind of two phases for it, but really it's how software communicates with other software. It stands for Application Programming Interface, but that's kind of at the gist of it. So like a good example of this is what you see here is all driven through an API. Actually, more specifically, this part I have in my code actually calls the YouTube API to grab all of these live stream comments because those are actually happening right now in this live stream. I'm just displaying them differently. So my code talks to their code in a uniform way. That's typically what APIs are. They're typically uniform on how things are called and executed. Hopefully that answers your question. Let me know if you have more there. Any ideas related to online entrepreneurs, like you're looking for a business idea, for example? Well, yeah, I have thousands upon thousands of ideas for businesses. I always get them because I'm looking for them. I'm actively looking to solve these challenges, and a lot of times that manifests itself as a business, right? So the poll and the Q&A thing, this right here, I think potentially could be a business service because it's something I wanted and I need to make better interactions with you guys, right? So as we see, I'm getting a lot of really good votes on, hey, I should probably code a project live. And if you join my live stream tomorrow, we'll be talking a lot more about an upcoming Django bootcamp. And that's kind of what's going on here is code a project live. Now, to me, this is a really good business opportunity because, as you may know, there's plenty of people that are streaming. There's a lot more that are streaming right now because of everyone locked down, so many people working remotely. So it makes sense that something like this would be useful for many other people. But to me, I'm scratching my own itch, right? So I'm absolutely my first customer, right? I spent the time building these things, but I am not trying to build a market, right? So I'm not coming up with an idea that's completely out there and I'm convincing people that they should use that idea, right? I didn't convince anyone to live stream. I had to be convinced to live stream, right? There's many other people that have been live streaming for a really long time, and I think that a lot more teachers are going to live stream as well, because tools like this are starting to come out. This is certainly not the first tool that does this. It's just one that I wanted specifically for these live stream teaching. So that's the key here, is you find a market that already exists, and you find a idea in that market that probably fits for you, so you'll get over the hurdles, right? I might never make this into an actual business, right? It might just be a project that works perfectly for my current business and nothing else I need to do, right? So I actually already scratched my own itch. I don't really need to take this further, but if I wanted to, I definitely could. And that's kind of the point. Hopefully that answers your question. I mean, like, I love talking about entrepreneurship, so maybe I need to do a separate live stream just about entrepreneurship and business, and not related to code at all. Anyways, when is the Django async video coming? Thanks for the question. I don't have an answer there yet. I've been working a lot on these Raspberry Pi compute modules and something called a Turing Pi. That's going to be coming out soon. And then I also have a Django bootcamp coming out. But I already do cover Django async, just not Django 3.1. So Django async can be done in the Django channels series that I have. Thanks for the question. Appreciate it. What is the future of Django? Please reply. Yeah, so I think it's going to be a lot more asynchronous stuff. I've answered this a couple times in other live streams, so I get a lot more thorough in one of the ones a few days ago. But generally, it's going to be a lot more async, and I think that eventually we'll see a legitimate REST API built into Django. You can build all sorts of REST API things, but the Django REST framework, I think that will eventually be integrated into the core Django project, or at least I hope so. But then also like native rendering for things like React and Vue, front-end JavaScript things. So maybe hopefully a tighter integration with JavaScript things. I'm not quite sure if that integration or even the REST API thing is going to happen anytime soon. A big part of the reason is the Django REST framework is fantastic already. So for those people that need it, they can use it. The other part is Django is so much about model view templates. So perhaps that won't change either. But yeah, I mean, I think a good video to watch is by Andrew Goodwin. He's one of the core developers for Django. He released a video recently talking about the future of Django and async in Django earlier in September. So check that out as well. Why Vue? How to make a bot for Django for frequently asked questions. Okay, so why Vue? This is actually more like, I think generally speaking, why JavaScript. JavaScript adds a whole level of integration that interactivity, user interface stuff that you just can't do with just Django alone. So JavaScript makes your web applications feel a lot more native, like as if that application was installed on their local machine, although it wasn't. I mean, it could be, but it probably wasn't, which actually speeds up a lot of things, or at least feels that way. That's part of the reason why you'd use JavaScript things. Vue and React allow you to make JavaScript easier and like smaller components, so you can little by little start to take over the front end with Vue or React. How do you make a bot in Django? So you actually don't need Django for the bot side of things, right? You absolutely can use Django. I actually recommend that you use like Fast API or Flask as a microservice to Django, but you want to use some machine learning library, whether it's a deep learning library, which is probably the preferred method for machine learning, because it's like a paradigm shift in other traditional machine learning methods. So machine learning, basically getting a bunch of data, labeling that data for these frequently asked questions, so that when somebody else asks a question, they will have, like, your machine learning model will actually be able to make a prediction on what that question is. It's actually something I want to do for this live chat as well. So at some point, I want it where you ask a question that I probably already asked or already answered, rather, and then the bot would actually just suggest that you watch that part of the video. Because really, it's not always practical for me to answer all of these questions all the time, right? It would make a lot more sense to get the most popular questions as one single video that I have well thought out. Maybe I have a script for it. Maybe I have examples and stuff like that. That's actually what I want to work towards. So I certainly intend to make these live streams to help me with building more and better content for the channel and my website. Thanks for the question, though. That one went a little bit longer than I thought it would initially. Can you briefly explain how Redis works with Django channels? Well, I think maybe you're asking briefly how Redis works versus how it works with channels. So Redis is a data store. It's another type of database, if you will. And you can just really quickly add things without creating a schema for it. So it's kind of like adding key value pairs to a dictionary in Python, right? So adding keys to that dictionary is really easy to do. Redis is very similar to that. It's just the performance is a lot higher. So it's easy to cache things using Redis. It's easy to offload tasks using Redis as a task queue and Celery. So Django channels uses things like that as well. So there's basically like a key value pair that's being put into Redis that other parts of Django channels can actually use, or channels 2 can actually use. Thanks for the question. From Nepal, awesome. Another place I need to visit some point. All right, so can you please make a video on integrating more than one backend along with authentication and authorization that's managed by Django? Yeah, so this is a good question. How do you actually use Django for authenticating multiple different backends or maybe multiple services and stuff like that? OAuth 2 is a really good example of this. So if you've ever logged in with Google, for example, and it actually takes you to Google to authenticate your account, you can do that with OAuth 2 and the Django REST framework. Thanks for the question. What is the role of Django in web development? Django is the application layer of web development. So it's actually how you allow your users to interact with a database. Also how you can render out HTML pages or any mapping of any URL for that matter. So there's a lot of things that Django does. That's kind of the gist of it, I think. Only Gaming World. Hey, I already answered this question. Hey, bro. What's up? Thanks for coming out. Try React Part 2 or Vue.js tutorial. Thank you for the suggestions. A new version of Try React will come out at some point. I've just been doing all these live streams a lot. So, you know, C clearly is the winner here. Some of you guys actually like these live Q&As, obviously. But I actually thought that, man, this is tricky to do. I actually thought that B, it would be the winner, but I was wrong, very wrong. I'm not surprised about C, but I thought B would be like 20% or something, not 1%. Thus, polls are good. And you know, maybe because I've never done B, like you guys actually haven't seen me do that. Maybe that's why it's not being voted for, because it's not actually a whole lot further away from C, but it would just be very narrow in focus and maybe building towards C. I don't know. Anyways. Right. Hello from Egypt. Hey, how's it going? Welcome. Will you please make a shopping site using React and Django REST? Yes. So I'm working on a brand new e-commerce series. This is something I definitely do not have a time frame for, and it's going to be massive. And it's probably going to just be on my website. It might be on Udemy, but it will definitely be on my website. So be sure to check that out when you can. And I will say I'm already about 15 minutes behind on the questions. Like I pretty much never get through all of these questions now. I get so many, and I love it. I appreciate this for you guys actually asking all these questions. A quick way to get a question answered is by super chatting. That, of course, helps support what I'm doing here. It's really just that simple. But thanks for all the questions, and thanks for showing up, guys. I really appreciate it. Yep. Cool. Glad, hopefully I answered your question. Is it lagging for you? No, it's not lagging for me, but you know, I'm just recording it. I'm not actually watching it with this. So sorry that it's lagging, hopefully it's something YouTube is fixing right now. This is a good question. What's the cleanest way to upgrade Django? First, you do it on a non-production application first, right? So there's a couple of methods on what you want to do. First, you clone your code, whatever it is, make a copy of that code and put it in a completely new project. Install the virtual environment, do all those things, make it as isolated as you can, use Docker if you need, and literally just do pip install Django -- upgrade, right? Or pip env install Django upgrade, right? That is actually how you can upgrade Django. What's going to happen then is you're going to get a lot of errors when you try to run Django again, whether it's Python manage.py run server or Python manage.py test, right? So when you get those errors, you just have to knock them out one by one. A lot of the deprecation errors will show up before the new version. So one of the ways to not just destroy your entire project, let's say you have Django 1.11 running, which is still a valid version. It's just probably not, it doesn't get the support bugs or the security bugs like it used to, but it's still a really, really powerful version, and they handled a lot of the security bugs leading up to it. Okay, so that's one thing. So if you're upgrading Django 1.11, I would say upgrade first to Django 2.0 and make all the little minor changes that have to happen. Because it'll give you errors, and then you just do Google searches for Django 2.0, and let's say, for instance, like URLs, right? Or URL versus path, because I think that's when it happened. And then you'd use that same methodology to go to Django 2.1, and then Django 2.2, and then 3.0, and so on. That, I think, is a really good way to learn how to upgrade to newer versions of Django. Me personally, I pretty much upgrade only with LTSs, and there are release notes on Django's documentation that show you all of the things that are no longer supported features and all the things that are not going to be supported in the future. So the things that are not going to be supported in the future, you could always make notes of that in your code right now. So we're not that far off from Django 3.2 and as well as Django 4. I think they have release notes for both versions. You can look right now what those release notes are, what things are going to be removed, and you can start to prep your code for that. Because they don't just cut things off out of nowhere, right? They have a long build towards actually removing features. And that's really what you need to worry about with Django is features being removed. Some features are added for sure, but it's usually things that are being removed that break your backwards versions or your older versions of Django. Hopefully that answers your question, Marcelo. Thank you for that one. Do I make Android applications? Well, I can make Android applications using React Native, but I typically do not. If you want to learn how to build Android applications, check out Coding with Mitch. I believe that's his channel. I definitely have it linked on my YouTube channel. Mitch is a good guy. He's been doing a lot of things covering Android development. So I would check that out if you're interested there. He also has taken a number of things from me related to Django. And so he definitely has stuff on integrating. I believe he has stuff on integrating Android with Django, because it's not that hard. You just build a REST API, but he'll probably show you exactly how it's done. Thanks for the question. As a data scientist, should I know Django or basic web development or for model deployment? I know basic Django, but I don't know front end. Should I learn it? So when it comes to learning something, if you're really interested, to me, the answer is always yes, right? You should just try it out if you're really interested. And if your interest like just dives, then we're good, right? And then you can just skip it. Because there's so much in data science that you could probably spend time learning and mastering that you don't necessarily have to learn web development and vice versa, right? Personally, I think data science is going to be a huge part of our future. Of course, machine learning fits into data science as well. So I would say if you want to know basic web development for model deployment, because as a data scientist, I think a few critical things that you'll want to know. Definitely getting your model into production. Now, you can use a lot of those third-party platforms to do it, but that makes you locked into those third-party platforms, especially if things evolve, right? So if things change or costs go down a lot, let's say, for instance, NVIDIA decides that they want to offer cloud hosting for their GPUs, and it costs a fraction of the cost for everybody else, because NVIDIA could probably do that. You might want to move over to there, but maybe they don't have a managed service like Google Cloud or AWS does. So it'd be a good idea to actually know how to put your model into deployment for that single reason. And I would imagine that's going to continue to evolve, because machine learning DevOps or ML ops continues to evolve as well. And being resilient to those changes is really good. And knowing web development will help you at least generally understand how all of that's changing. And of course, you could always ask me questions. I'm super interested in this part. The next thing is actually being able to deploy your models one step, but then also getting a lot more data and how to ingest data. Django can do that really well. So Django could be where you ingest the data, where you store it into some sort of data store, whether it's a database or anywhere else. Your web application can be a big part of that. So you can connect it to IoT devices and get a bunch of sensor data. So yeah, learning web development would be really, really good for all of those things. But if you're actually doing a bunch of web scraping and that's how you're getting your data, perhaps you don't necessarily need the web development side for ingesting data. But I do think it's important for bringing your models into production. So thanks for the question. It's a really good one. Really good. I wonder what you work on mostly. Please let me know. Hey, could you explain asynchronous requests with AJAX or vanilla JavaScript to the Django server, like advanced filtering and e-commerce websites? Okay, sure. So, what is AJAX? So AJAX stands for asynchronous JavaScript requests, essentially, right? So asynchronous JavaScript requests. Let's talk about what's not AJAX. Well, when you click on a button and the entire page reloads, that's typically not AJAX. Whatever that is, right? Whether it's a form and you're submitting the form and the entire page reloads, probably not AJAX. But something like a like button, that is typically AJAX, because you click on it, the number increments, and the backend remembers your choice. So what's happening here is JavaScript is actually doing the request for you using the asynchronous methods. The backend may or may not be asynchronous. In Django, you certainly can make it asynchronous, but you don't have to, right? So JavaScript is calling it asynchronously, which means that it's calling it, and you as a user, while it's being called, you can still do other things. You can still use the website normally. Again, going back to that like button, if you like this video and then you subscribe to the channel, you can do both of those things right now, and you can still watch this live stream and also click those buttons and add some more comments. That's a bunch of asynchronous requests that are happening at the same time. Now, if it was synchronous, what would happen is you'd click that button, the entire page would reload. Click the like button, the entire page would reload. Click the subscribe button, the entire page will reload. And then actually submit a message in the live stream, the entire page will reload. It's incredibly useful to actually be able to do asynchronous requests. So the JavaScript sends that request to Django. Django treats it like any other request, except instead of returning back a index, like an actual rendered HTML page, it returns back JSON or JavaScript object notation, so that JavaScript then can parse that data really easily. Django could totally send back HTML, and JavaScript could totally parse that data for what it's looking for, but it's not common practice to do that. It's much more common practice for your backend to send back JSON if it's being like sent JSON, right? So a AJAX request will also be sending data in the request as JSON, most likely. You might use other formats, but JSON's the most popular, I would say. And then from there, whatever is responded back from Django, you can use to filter down what's being displayed. All of this is simplified a lot using React.js or Angular or Vue.js, because those manage state really, really well. So doing a like button, for example, in React, Angular, or Vue is incredibly easy, because you can use those asynchronous requests a lot faster, and it's easier to update what is being displayed with those than pure JavaScript. Pure JavaScript can absolutely do it. jQuery can absolutely do it, but it's just harder to do. That's it. Or it takes longer, I should say. It's not necessarily harder, it just takes longer. Thanks for the question. Hey, you're from Nigeria. Welcome. I have a large fan base in Nigeria. Is that right? Yeah, I get a number of people from Nigeria on these live streams, and I appreciate you showing up. Thanks for coming out. Okay, so I'm actually going to pull this poll now and leave it off for the remainder. I'll probably put it back on in a future one if you didn't get a chance to vote. Thanks for voting. Next one, I want to learn web scraping. What do you think about this? I think that's great. Check out my 30 Days of Python series. I do web scraping a lot in that one. Hello, sir. Are there a lot of built-in features slash frameworks of Django that we haven't tried in a tutorial from you, such as a site framework, Django, and stuff like that? Oh yeah. So there's a lot of third-party packages that I haven't covered. Absolutely. The sites framework, there's not actually a whole lot to me that does that. I think Django could probably handle multi-tenant applications with the sites framework, but it's not something I've ever needed to do, so therefore I've never actually taught about it. Django is another one of those things that I've just never had a lot of reason to do those themselves, but perhaps if there's a lot more people that want to see those things, I'll have to cover it. So make sure you let me know in the future. Or I should say, if you want to see these things, keep bugging me about it. And that goes for everybody. Just comment and say, hey, I'd love to see Django. The more I see these things, the more likely it is to be covered. I already have a long list of things that I intend to do in the near future too. So thanks for the question. How do you go about making something that can be used as a social login, e.g. login with CFE, something like that, using other sites? I'm probably randomly, but basically creating an API. So what you're asking is OAuth 2, and you can use the Django REST framework to do this. There's a number of packages that allow you to do OAuth 2. OAuth 2 allows you to produce your own login with service, right? So login with CFE, as you mentioned, but like Google login with Google, that's how it works. It uses OAuth 2. So the process on Django would be you install an OAuth 2 library, and then you would create an application for that third-party application, right? So like if you have two web apps and you need them to authenticate with each other, one of them is going to do all the OAuth 2 stuff. The second one needs to register an application with the first one, and then that way the OAuth 2 and the callbacks could actually work, where there's actually a request token that comes back specifically for that user. There's a lot that we can go in here, but Django REST Framework does that. I think even Django AllAuth, I think you could probably even build your own providers there as well. Django AllAuth is really good for the social authentication for other sites that already exist. Thanks for the question. Django. Cool. Willy Wonka, welcome back. 30 minutes ago. Welcome. Frankfurt, Germany. Nice. I already got this question. Okay. How does SHA-256 work? That is a great question on encryption. I don't really have a good answer for you right off the top of my head. It's probably something I should have a good answer for you, but I just don't. Thanks for the question, though. Hey, guy, you are a genius in Django. I don't know about that, but thank you. Thank you for the nice comment. You really enjoy my e-commerce tutorials on YouTube, huh? What e-commerce tutorials? That's funny. Have I tried the Rust programming language? Only a little bit, so I don't have enough to really give a solid answer there. If you know Hindi, code with Harry. Oh, cool. I wasn't aware of a Hindi Django developer, but of course it absolutely makes sense that there would be one. You should invite Harry to come to one of these channels. Oh, wow. Maybe he won't. He's got quite a few more subscribers and probably pretty busy himself, but that's pretty cool. He's got some good stuff. So Code with Harry. Thanks for the resource there, Jules. Is Golang good as a main language for a junior backend developer position? Probably, I would imagine. Look at this one, the MERN stack or React Django REST. So This stack is MongoDB, Express, JS, React, and Node.js, or React, Django, REST. Honestly, it probably doesn't matter. I mean, some people would probably argue that one is better than the other. I think whichever one you can get into production faster is better. That's it. That's my best recommendation there. But as far as like actual performance, I don't think the vast majority of applications are not going to reach the scale necessary to really compare these two. And if they do reach that scale, more than likely there's going to be other kinds of services like Kubernetes that is going to help support those applications from running. I think they're both very performant, and you can actually use MongoDB with Django with something called Django. I just released a blog post related to that. So yeah, thanks for the question. Let's see, multi-threading in Python, and thanks for the suggestion. Appreciate it. I don't get that one very often, so that's why I haven't covered it. This topic is off question, but how much of your viewers are from India? I think on YouTube, it's probably like 25%, something like that. It's like YouTube or India and the US oscillate which one's like the top viewers for this. I would say a lot of these live streams, I get a lot of people from India that are asking a lot of really good questions. I think a big part of this is because I'm trying to do it at a time that's ideal for people in India. But then the other thing is a lot of Americans don't necessarily jump on and ask questions right off the bat, in my experience. And that's kind of what I do. I might, if I watch a live stream, I might just listen to who's ever doing the live stream and not necessarily ask a bunch of questions. A good example of this is Pat Flynn. He runs a Smart Passive Income podcast and many other things related to business. Really good YouTube channel. I've watched a number of his live streams, and I've literally never asked a question. And I've talked to a few friends. This is a fairly common phenomenon. Shoot, what do they call it? Lurking, I think, is like a social media lurker, somebody who just watches and doesn't interact. That's like a very common thing in the US. I would imagine it's common around the world, but luckily with these live streams, I get a lot of good questions from a lot of people around the world. That's also why I love asking where you guys are from. Being on here is to get a sense as to what might be the best time to actually host a lot of these live streams. Thanks for the question. And here's someone from North America, Canada. It's funny because when I was in Europe, I would often say to people, like, they'd be like, "Oh, where are you from?" I'd say America, and then realizing, of course, there's North and South America, but for some reason, the United States, people in the US claim all of America. I don't do that anymore. I say I'm from California, or I say I'm from the United States. Like, Canadians are from North America and therefore are Americans too, but even Canadians wouldn't necessarily say that, but they're from North America. And everyone from South America, Mexicans, like, do they claim Americans too? Probably not, but anyways, that's a little divergence there. Hey, from Canada, any opinion if Django plus Graphene for GraphQL usage instead of REST API is a decent approach? Yeah, so GraphQL versus building a REST API. GraphQL has a lot of promise. I haven't really been able to make the big switch, honestly. I've definitely dabbled in it a little bit, but I really like the structure that REST API provides out of the gates. So I just know what that structure is, and then I can run with it. GraphQL is not structured like REST API. So you just really have a lot of options with it. And those options, I think sometimes too many choices are in those options, and I would rather just have that structure, but it's definitely something that's ready for production. And perhaps it would remove some of the slowdowns from certain REST APIs and how they build them. But I haven't spent a whole lot of time doing that. So thanks for the question. Appreciate it. Hey, from India, welcome. Hello. Hey, it's Dave again. Enjoy coffee. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Love the super chats. It's just like that coffee, Dave, is going to get me through the next super chat. It's like $2 for the hour of the next one. You know what I mean? Or the next live chat. Because I already have coffee for this one right here. How you doing, Dave? Doing well? Hopefully. You've been on here a lot, and I appreciate you. Thank you for the Django channels tutorial. I was stuck on it for like a week, and then you went in my tutorial and I helped in each thing. Yeah, that actually happened to me too. That's why I made the tutorial. I was like, hey, I really am interested in this Django channels thing. And I spent a bunch of time just hammering it out. And also they changed Django to channels from Django 1 or Django channels 1 to Django channels 2 was not that smooth of a transition, but it was a necessary one to just cut the cord and just introduce Django channels 2 in the way they did. So yeah, I that's why I made this tutorial, and I'm glad it helped you out. This is not really a question, it's more of a confession. I started watching your videos and I really like how you explain and teach that I'm starting my own channel in Spanish, targeting Latin America. I think Latin America. What is LATAM? Please let me know. Jorge. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce your name, because that's how you pronounce it in Spanish, folks. At least that's how my friend Jorge pronounces it. So yeah, you absolutely should start a channel. There's like, I used to have this thought of like, oh, you know, more channels means people are going to watch my stuff less. No, it's not like that at all. If anything, more channels mean that all of us get watched more, because hopefully we're all pushing the ship forward. There's almost 7 billion people in the world, right? You know, so if 1,000 people watch your channel and not mine, I think we'll both be okay, and vice versa. Even if 1 million people watch your channel and not mine, I think we'll be okay. 10 million, 100 million. There is 7 billion people. It's nuts. So we definitely need more channels in other languages as well. I spent some time with a friend of mine to put together a Spanish version of the Django stuff, and Probar Django is what it's called. And we got, basically she got burnt out, but we did do some good stuff there, and I think there's a lot of potential in the Spanish market for all things Python and Django. So Jorge, best of luck. Let me know if you ever make one that has subtitles in English. I'd love to check it out. Tweet it at me here. Hopefully you're still on with us. I know this was like 30 minutes ago, but tweet it at me and let me know what it is that you are working on. Because I definitely want to tell other people this too, because I definitely have a good number of Spanish-speaking people, or the first people that are Spanish, or what am I saying? Their first language is Spanish, and then their second language is English, and they're learning how to code, which might be you. I would imagine is probably you. It's like, how do you know 2 languages and now you're learning programming languages and maybe many of them? That is awesome. Good on you for all of that. Yeah. Cool. Next question, Justin, what criteria do you use in developing chat apps and web applications? Is it Django channels, or are there APIs for chat apps? So there's definitely third-party services that do chat apps. I think everyone knows this well because we use chat apps all the time. We're using one right now. Now, every once in a while, if I need real-time chat, then yes, Django channels is the choice. But a lot of chat doesn't necessarily need that, right? So like a good example of this is Twitter's direct messages, right? They are probably real time at this point because Twitter's so big and they want to make it the best possible thing it could be. But if you're not nearly as big as Twitter, does that inbox need to be real time, or does the feed need to be real time? My sense is no. So Django channels, you probably don't necessarily need to jump there first. In fact, if you don't jump there first and you build a chat with standard synchronous or even the new Django asynchronous views and not using WebSockets, you'll have a fallback, a really good fallback for if the WebSocket connection fails, which is what Django channels uses. So that's actually where I'd start. Good question. How to keep motivated while learning, because while learning we sometimes feel frustrated and the level of dedication slowly decreases. Yes, totally understand this one all too well. To me, the best way to stay motivated with something is to remove motivation from the equation. Instead, make it a habit of something you do. For example, how often are you not motivated to eat, right? Now, of course, there are psychological things that you could be going through that cause that as a problem. But let's say, for instance, if you're not suffering from any psychological thing, the motivation to eat is really easy. The motivation to sleep is really easy. To drink water. There is no motivation. It's a habit. You're hungry, you eat. You're thirsty, you drink. Speaking of, So to me, you should find a habit for learning. Now, of course, this could be for Django. It could be for anything. Maybe it's every Tuesday between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m., so at nighttime. That's the time that you spend learning something. No matter what, every Tuesday. That's the time. And then after that, maybe you give yourself a little treat and have dinner or whatever, both things. And you just do that regularly. And you continuously do that. Perhaps you do it every day. But if you turn it into a habit, then it's no longer about motivation. It's about fulfilling the habit. And you'll get something called dopamine every time you do it, especially if you have a little treat at the end. So the dopamine will be released and you'll feel good about the fact that, hey, I didn't get that far. My progress with what I was learning was not great, but you know what? I fulfilled my weekly habit of learning. That is what I would do and not think of it in terms of motivation, because motivation is certainly fleeting. It's fleeting for me. It's fleeting for everyone, right? These live streams are a good example. I've been trying to do them every day. They're not quite a daily habit yet, but I think if I do it for another 10 or 20 days, they'll probably become a daily habit, and I'll just be jumping on here, answering questions, and it's no longer a motivation to just jump on to a live stream. It's just, I just do it. And the Q&A ones are a lot easier. So my stakes are much lower doing a Q&A because I'm just answering questions. Maybe I know them, maybe I don't, but I'm not like preparing a course. I'm not putting all of this like extra pressure on these live streams, at least not yet. I mean, I definitely want to step up the game there. But if I'm not motivated, it's just like, well, I just do it anyway. Hopefully that helps. Performance and scalability. Both are scalable, both have high performance. This then starts to turn into a DevOps question, the things that are behind running these applications, where they're running, how they're running, also the efficiency within them. But Instagram uses Django for their backend. Maybe it's not true anymore, but they definitely did when they were scaling, and they definitely did when they sold for billions of dollars with like 12 people. So Django definitely is scalable. Node.js, same thing. Node.js and React and Express, that can also scale and also has great performance. So I don't think these are really great questions to ask, because the vast majority of us are not going to be facing the performance and scalability challenges for a long time. And if you are facing those things, more than likely you're going to be looking at DevOps more than the web application framework layer itself. That's just my sense. You'll probably use microservices and stuff like that as well. So Django might actually call some Node.js projects and vice versa. But the vast majority of it is certainly scalable and very high performant. Thanks for the question. Okay. For the front end of a web chatbot, it's using APIs to get responses. Oh, okay. So for the front end, do you want to use React or simple JavaScript using Flask? So whatever your client is, whether it's a web application front end or a mobile application, it doesn't really matter that much as long as you can actually call the API and the API is performant. Thanks for the question. Next one, can you describe the difference between Heroku and NGINX and which to use for chatbot deployment? You can use either one. Heroku can handle chatbots, no problem. NGINX is a more custom way to do it. NGINX, there's probably managed NGINX services, but it's really how you actually run your web application on any given server. So it it's kind of above your web application. It also can handle routing, load balancing, and stuff like that. And Heroku helps you do that too. Heroku might actually use Nginx for parts of that anyway. It's actually a good question as far as whether or not Heroku uses Nginx. I'm not aware of that. If anyone does know, please let me know. Yes. Guys, please like the video. Yes, I agree with you, Priyanash. Is it too late to register for the 2-day bootcamp? No. The 2-day bootcamp will be discussed tomorrow. I actually don't have any registration information other than the live stream. So the live stream tomorrow at 11 a.m. California time will cover all of that. Are you going to make Flutter tutorials at some point? Probably, just not anytime soon. Flutter uses Dart, and I'm not really that great with Dart yet, so it's going to take some time before I end up there. It's going to take a good amount of time. I'll say that. There's only so much time in the day. Next one, make an API that talks to a front end, so you can call it. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you're trying to say there. Love from Nigeria. Thank you. Thank you. Please do it in the morning. Yes. So that would be at my nighttime. I will try to do that. Nighttime's a little bit harder for me because it's a lot of family time. And depending on when family time ends, I just might be too exhausted to jump on a live stream and answer these things for any meaningful amount of time. I mean, I could probably do it for 20 minutes, but I get so many questions that it's hard to stop after 20 minutes. You know what I mean? Thanks for the suggestion. I will definitely try and do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to some of the newer ones. This one was 7 minutes ago. Greetings from Poland. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. Why don't you write unit tests, functional tests in your courses? I feel like my experience tests are as important as the code we write for features in the app. Yes, so I actually do have tests from time to time, and I probably should be spending a lot more time writing unit tests. Why isn't it there? Writing tests is incredibly boring, but also incredibly easy and incredibly important. So after you build the core functionality of your application, writing the tests for that is not really that hard to do. But I do think I need to do a better job of including these from the get-go so that we're not necessarily coming back. Pretty sure the Tweet Me Too series, that big one, pretty sure I do a number of tests in there as well. Now, there is this concept of test-driven development. I understand why it exists. I think it's just a little silly. So the test-driven development means you literally write the test before you write anything else. So I think it's a good idea in the sense like, hey, you write a test for what you're trying to accomplish, and then you build what you're trying to accomplish. To me, it's like, well, why not build what you're trying to accomplish first and then test what you're trying to accomplish? So you're not writing a solution to the test, essentially. You are writing the solution, and then you're stress testing the solution you created. To me, that's a better way to do it. But of course, there's probably a lot of really good arguments for test-driven development, and I think you're pointing out something that's really important. I absolutely need to spend more time with tests in general. It's too important of a concept to miss. So thank you for that. Jorge, thank you for the comment again. You have 2 videos starting out, Linux tutorials, but of course I want to jump into programming in Python and Django. Yeah, you should do everything. I would say don't spend too much time in the beginning. Just make something you're interested in. Don't edit it too much. Over time, you'll eventually get a lot better at the recording part of things. Just make sure that you're not sounding too scripted, you know, these sorts of things. But really, you want to continuously do it. Make it a habit, like I just mentioned about the learning part. If you make it a habit, eventually you'll start to have a really full-featured channel. So yeah, I mean, you have 2 videos. Can you do 2 videos a day? Can you do 1 a day? Sometimes I make like 20 videos a day, right? I just get in this flow where I'm just making a ton of videos. So I think you can get there too. You just need to build up the habit for it and not to get too self-conscious in with what you're building. But then when in doubt, just make the video shorter. So you just cover one single concept and then boom, you're done and you move on to the next one. That way you're not necessarily giving too much context like I do from time to time, because oftentimes when you do those too much context things, it starts to sound like rambling, and then that's where you might lose your audience. I know I do often, probably in these live streams constantly, I would imagine. Projects to really level up with Django. Have you seen the Tweet Me 2 project, and how are you doing with that? I think that gives you a good example of a fully production app, but then how do you actually add to it? So really leveling up with Django comes to when you're thinking of a feature and you need to implement it yourself. I think that's the best way to really level up. And then the next thing is to actually teach other people some of the challenges that you solved while you were learning Django itself, or some of those aha moments that you get while you're learning from someone else like myself, or anybody for that matter. Thanks for the question. Sorry for not mentioning my country. No worries. Thank you from Pakistan, huh? Yeah, cool. Welcome. Or, well, you didn't say thank you from Pakistan. I'm saying thank you to you for mentioning you're from Pakistan. Pakistan. What's the most complex web app that I built? So it's not a production web app at this point, but it was something for Tide AI. Perhaps I will turn it back into a production web app. But I had this really nice integration of training machine learning models with the GPU, where that would scale up and down depending on demand, and then turning those into production web endpoints. So basically all the user would have to do is upload a data set and then hit train, and that would do all the things necessary, train the data set, and then turn it into a full-on API itself. There's a lot of complexities that go into that. That was the most complex thing that I built. It used Docker. It used everything related to Docker, Kubernetes, Knative, a bunch of other integrations to make all that run without getting too much in the weeds there. Thanks for the question. I appreciate it. Appreciate the answer I gave you yesterday about your project in Twitter. Cool. I'm glad that it helped. When did I start coding? Seriously coding, probably about 8.5, 9 years ago, something like that. And then I started really teaching in 2013. So 7 years ago, almost 8. It's gonna be 8 in a few months. Crazy. But yeah, maybe I started about 10 years ago, actually, come to think of it. Yeah. Can we start with Django REST framework instead of Django? Well, you can't really use the Django REST framework if you don't know Django. So yeah. Hey, welcome. Looks like you just got on. Swan? Is that your name? Or is that where... No, that must be your name. Sorry if I mispronounced it. And you're from Lagos, Nigeria. Cool. It is really late in India, huh? And you're still up. Nice. Thanks for checking it out. Hey, how's it going? How do you pronounce your name? Is it Pankaj? Probably mispronounced that. I apologize. You're following all my Django tutorials and learned a lot from these. You just need one tutorial on how to deploy any Django project created on a Linux server. So to do this, you use something, I have a whole series on it called Hello Linux, and you can learn how to deploy on a Linux server from there, from scratch. You can do this on Windows. The only way you would test it on Windows, instead of using GUnicorn, you use something called Waitress. That is not in that series, but that's how you would do it. And I think I just recently had released a new blog post related to using Redis on Windows as well. So check that out. Cool. Okay, so here, this looks like your roadmap. HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, jQuery, React, Python, MySQL, Django, Git. Can I follow this roadmap for web development? Yes, you can. I don't know if you need the jQuery part of these things. jQuery is still relevant for sure. It's still very much used. But if you know pure JavaScript, even just a little bit of pure JavaScript, and you move into React or Vue or something like that, you're probably good to go. I don't know if you need jQuery anymore. Maybe it'd be a good idea to have a little bit of knowledge, so perhaps it's still good. But in general, I really like React or pure JavaScript. I don't really go the jQuery route anymore. So yeah, hope that answers your question. Do I use tiling window managers? What do you mean by that and where? Node or Python for IoT, either. They're both great. And they're really not that much different. How they actually work and run. Once you know JavaScript and Python, you'll see all the similarities. I think as a beginner, they seem dauntingly different, but they're really not once you actually fully understand the concepts in either one. So just pick one and really make it happen. Big well done for everything you do. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Using machine learning on Django, is it a good idea or not? So if you're talking about hosting a model for inference or deploying a model on Django, you can do it, but I wouldn't do it on your main Django project. Because hosted models can take up a good amount of memory, and that might actually interrupt your Django project too much. Right, so if you have a bunch of users on your Django project and you're hosting a machine learning model on your Django project, you're probably going to run into a bunch of issues. So what would be better is you actually host or deploy your machine learning model on a microservice, so Fast API or Flask or something like that, AIO, HTTP, any of the microservices, and then having Django do an API call to those things when you need to actually use the machine learning model. That is how I would do it, and that's how I do it, is you want to keep it separate. Django itself can be the ingestion server, though, like actually getting all of the data itself you would then use for machine learning. Django is really good for that, including in the main application itself. I've been really helpful over the years. Thank you so much. I'm assuming that's what you were talking about. Cheers to you as well. Let's see here. I'm going to try and get a few more of the recent ones. I just need to do a quick little refresh on my chat application thing here. I wonder, does anyone know the YouTube API really well? I'm kind of guessing that you're on here and you might not know it really well. Because you're asking me a bunch of questions, and if you know the YouTube API really well, perhaps you are not necessarily taking the time to be on these live streams, maybe. But yeah, okay, so let's see here. Here we go. Fast API tutorial, is there something on it? Yeah, eventually I'm going to be doing a Fast API tutorial. Thanks for the question. Does async await, is it mature enough to use in Python? Absolutely, 100%. Have I ever been to India? No, I have not been to India yet. I will go at some point in the future, hopefully with my whole family. We'll see. Is Django with React the best? I think they're really good, but they are different. Django and Vue is really good. Django and pure JavaScript is really good. Yeah. Django views in classes or in functions. So function-based views or class-based views. Hey, if you guys spam the comments, I will hide you from the channel and potentially not ask or answer any questions you have in the future. Sorry, this is not one of those. So I like both of them. If it's anything related to the ORM or the Django models, class-based views are what I use pretty much all the time. But if I need to prototype something really quick, no matter what it is, I'll use a function-based view because it's really a lot faster than the class-based views in a lot of ways. But I think you should get familiar with both of them if you're going to be using Django a lot. Thanks for the question. Penetration testing on Django applications. Thanks for the suggestion. That's probably a good idea to use. I use API for videos and audio. What are you talking about? I don't know. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. You're the one who asked about what API is because you didn't really get what you want and I explained it thoroughly. Great. I'm glad. Hopefully that did solve the problem for you. And hey, Philippines, nice. Welcome. How many hours a day are you coding on average? That's a good question. It's hard to actually give an answer there because I work for myself, so I don't have like a set schedule. And I'm not always just coding. Sometimes I'm writing, like writing content or preparing a course. So it's really hard to say. Sometimes it's like 2 hours in a day. Sometimes it's 14 hours in a day or longer. So yeah, but when I was learning, it was like every possible waking hour I could do it that didn't interrupt with my other responsibilities at the time. That was a while ago. So it was like probably for sure 12 to 14 hours a day, every day for a while. That's because I just really had this strong desire to learn it. Thanks for the question. I haven't used this Svelte. Is it Svelte for Django REST framework? I haven't used that. I should probably check it out. What is it? Svelte. Yeah, interesting. Thanks for the question. Developing an app like Twitter with a chat application, but I want to be like Facebook with a homepage and stuff like that. Check out my Tweet Me 2 series I released on YouTube. It's like 12 hours long. Definitely will help you solve a lot of those issues, I think. Please make a tutorial for the poll I'm using in this live session, how it works. Well, the live session, these polls, like what you see here, and you can vote for these by putting one of those hashtags. It's really simple. The Django tutorial itself has how to build a poll. So on Django project, they have a tutorial on building polls. This is not a whole lot different than that. The only difference here is how I handle the comments. So to do that, I have another model that handles the comments, that stores the comments. The poll is completely separate. The voting part is just another model itself that parses from these comments, looking for hashtag A, hashtag B, or hashtag C. And then it actually tallies up those votes. It's actually not really that much different than what's on the Django project tutorial. The only exception was how the voting actually happens. It's not in a form. It's parsing using a regular expression in there. And I think I just covered regular expressions in 30 Days of Python. Thanks for that question. All right. Lithuania, welcome. I feel like Inlock or Nlock. I feel like you've been here before. Thank you for coming out. Thanks for the answer, and don't worry about the pronunciation. Thank you, I appreciate that. But I do want to be able to pronounce a lot of these names better, and including yours. So there's got to be a way to make that a little bit easier on English speakers like me who are not great at pronouncing even English or English-based names. Yeah. Tell us about advanced Django. What do you want to know? I mean, yeah, seriously. Next one, let's see. What is Docker? So Docker helps you isolate environments better. So if you've ever used a virtual machine, Docker's a lot like that. But essentially, it's a virtualized container that allows you to control the operating system, so your application layer can have all of the things that it needs, and it's mostly isolated from the rest of your system, which is pretty cool. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's it. Is connecting PayPal to Django difficult? There is something called Braintree, which makes it a lot easier, which is owned by PayPal, and essentially you use their API to build API keys for all of your users. So you'd want to have it in Django in that case. And you just use those API keys. And then the user itself, you use their embedded like tools for actually rendering out credit card payment processing. And then on the client side, it actually is handled by Braintree. This is also true with Stripe. So even if it's PayPal's version in Braintree, Braintree handles all the client side, sends you back a token. You can use that token to charge your users from there. That's how we do it on our website. Thanks for the question. Let's see. Thanks for the answer. You're welcome. I make a tutorial on implementing OAuth. Thanks for the suggestion. That's a good idea. when can we expect the last episode of the 30 Days of Python series? You know, I'm having a hard time coming up for what I should do for the last day. I had a bunch of ideas for 30 Days of Python. The old version of 30 Days of Python, what I did was I had like the last 5 days or so were really just one project split up across 5 days. This time I decided to have the last like 10 days all being pretty big projects individually. So they're sort of related to what's before. So this last one, I'm just kind of at a loss as to what I should do without going into web application development like Django, because that requires some additional skills that aren't just Python related. So let me know what you think. I definitely want to hear. Thanks for the question. Facebook authentication, API authentication, Django tutorial is available. Yes, on my website, I have a Django AllAuth series. Django AllAuth makes it really, really easy to authenticate with all sorts of social accounts, including Facebook. Thanks for the question. You love my work and wash hands. These must be emojis that just weren't rendered. That's funny. I want to implement password reset change feature, and you saw everyone's using Django default authentication views. It's this best way to do it. You totally can do that. That's a good idea. Django AllAuth is another really good one for the password reset and password management and email management for users as well. So you can add multiple emails to one single user. So yeah. Bootcamp related questions, please bring those tomorrow to the live stream. I'm going to be answering hopefully a lot of those things in there. Okay, guys, so just maybe like a couple more questions. I'm going to go back some time. I definitely skipped a bunch. This one's like from basically an hour ago. Can you use Django as a microservice? Yes, you absolutely can. Oh, wow. Geez, I've been doing this a while. Okay, so actually, I'm going to call it. Thanks so much for the questions, guys. Really appreciate it. I do enjoy doing these live streams, and I decided to make them also public, like right away. So they're on my YouTube channel here, and make sure you subscribe if you haven't. I'm really curious as to why you're on this live stream and not subscribed, and how you heard about it. I think maybe recommendations or something like that. But yeah, these live streams have been a lot of fun, and hopefully they are useful for you. Please let me know if they are useful, because I definitely want to see doing more live things, because it gives me it allows me to just communicate with you guys, or it feels like I'm communicating with you a lot more directly than when I'm just talking to the camera by myself in my studio here. Anyways, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.